Welcome to Shutter and Flow. Today, we're going to have a little bit of a different format. Jeremy and I thought it would be really good to talk about some of the photographers, brands that are important in the photographic world, and some people that influenced us when we started out and continue to influence us today, even though the images and some of the things are from a long time ago. And today we're going to start with Henri Cartier-Bresson. I hope I pronounced that somewhat correctly. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Decisive moment, some of his influences, and a little bit about him. Jeremy, when was the first time that you saw his work? Was it back in photo school?
Yeah, I'm sure I saw something of his before that. But photo school obviously is when you learn the Decisive moment photo, and we'll show that image later. It's basically, he is the father of street photography. Almost shot exclusively black and white, all 35. He was like one of the first people to do 35 millimeter, like exclusively, which people forget that he was born, I believe, 1908 is what it was.
Yeah.
35 millimeter didn't exist until 1934. So before that, you were dealing with medium format, 120 film, 4x5, 8x10s. Yeah. And then there was that whole series. It's amazing how many different random film sizes there were from back then that are just so obsolete. So yeah, I think that was the first time I really saw it.
Yeah, same. So in terms of him as a photographer, right? You kind of have to go back and think pre-digital, anything digital in a camera. It's mechanical cameras, and at the beginning of these companies even building these cameras. And so for him to choose to shoot 35, it was a little bit of a departure from how people were shooting back then. So it used to be, think medium format or large format, set up on a tripod, things shot in a studio. And that's kind of why his work was really important. He would go out in the streets of Paris or wherever in France and other parts of Europe and basically do what many people still do today, which is bring a camera, go around and find something interesting to shoot. That was not the case when people began shooting years ago. So going back to him a little bit, he was born before World War I, served in World War II, and one of the best stories is he was captured and spent years in a Nazi prison camp, tried to escape multiple times, finally was able to escape, and one of the first things he did was go up and dig up his 35 millimeter Leica, which he had buried. So
yeah, he didn't want it to get lost, which is, it's like he knew he was going to get captured. He didn't want to lose his camera. He went and wrapped it up, covered it, hid it somewhere, went back later and picked it up, which is, tells you how important a Leica is to people.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to talk a little bit about not just what people think of when they hear the Decisive moment, because the phrase, I think it was originally in French, doesn't really translate to English, but his
hold on, I looked it up. It was the title of a book that he put out called The Decisive Moment was what is seen as, but the French translation is called Images on the Sly.
Yeah.
Which is so great. And I think this is an important thing to remember is those previous formats of camera, even the 4x5 press camera, which I have one and I've used it recently, it's big and it's boxy and it is very obvious that you're walking around taking a photo. With the invention of 35 millimeter and then the smaller Leica camera, you could be sly about this and be subtle and catch these moments that people didn't know you were doing it all the time. Now it's very obvious because everyone's taking photos and has a phone and everything else. But back then, you could be very subtle, and he would actually tape black tape around his camera. Which drives me crazy that people still do this, but to cover up everything on it so you wouldn't notice it was there.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
And he shot with a 50 millimeter lens. So normal lens, right? There were zoom lenses at the time, I believe, or maybe not in the early 1930s, 40s, but later on. And I think he only, like, as long as he shot photography, only shot with a 50 millimeter lens, didn't shoot zoom lenses, was very minimalistic in terms of gear, right? So even back then, there were a lot of options, and he chose to just shoot one thing, which I still think is kind of amazing. It was more about the process. It's a very artistic thing. It's more about the process as opposed to the gear and what you could do, because he absolutely could have shot with medium format cameras and tried to get maybe slightly better quality on certain things, but it wasn't about that, right? It was about geometry, framing, what's in the actual frame. It's about not just capturing the moment, which is part of it, but it's about the emotion and the feeling in the moment that's captured. So don't think of it as, oh, you're shooting a sports game and you're like, oh, I got exactly when the pitcher threw the ball. It's more about like something actually happening that is an emotional connection to somebody else who looks at the image. And
And
so it's not a spray and pray. It's a taking your time, composing the shot, and getting exactly what you want.
one, he is also very specific about, if you look at a lot of his prints, they're not cropped. It was full
Yeah, no
frame.
cropping in camera.
Yeah, it would normally have on the prints that he would put out, you would have like a little bit of the frame of the negative around it. And it was all about getting that all in one shot. And yeah, there was no spray and pray. You're shooting a 35
Yeah.
millimeter at most. I don't even think then you could get 36 frames. It was 24. That's all you're getting anyways, and you still have to develop it, and it costs a lot of money even then. So you're not just like holding it down, and so
Yeah, yeah. So this goes back to, I think, the ethos that you and I both have, which is slow down, take time, and compose things, and actually try to get the shot, everything perfect in camera as best as you can, right? Which is obviously sometimes difficult, especially in commercial work. But for street photographers or somebody who has full control over what they're shooting, I am amazed at sometimes I'll see things and you can just tell how little effort sometimes goes into it, because just go and shoot, and then like pick out what the best shot is, maybe, but it's a totally different style of shooting. And I think it's the best style, even though it was kind of developed in the 1940s.
yeah, and it's amazing to see some of their contact sheets from back then, and it's like how few shots they would take of a certain thing, and it's like this well-known photo that you've
Yeah,
seen.
it was a few images of something, right? And it was waiting for the right moment if there's a subject, or composing it really, really well and carefully, and then taking a few images of it. That's it. And then moving on to the next thing. So let's share, the most famous photo. So this is the puddle jump, or most people just call it the decisive moment, because this is the photo that this entire sort of movement that he started, this is the movement, right? It is this photograph, and it's a perfectly composed photograph of somebody jumping over a puddle. He's not landing in the puddle, he's not before jumping. The idea, you can just see it here, right? It's that you don't really know what's going to happen in the shot, and it's a beautiful photograph and really well composed, but it does kind of have that the feeling to it more than just, oh, I'm just taking a random photo of somebody.
Yeah, and it's everything about it is just the depth and the black and white. There's no ripples in the water yet, and it's really an impressive, just especially when, like we said, he took one frame of this. He wasn't sitting there just like shooting a bunch. It was one frame. There it is. And it's not like this was a one-off thing. You see photographers all the time that have like this one photo that's like, oh, look at this, I did that now. But
Now, yeah.
he was doing stuff all the time like this. There's another great one I've seen of, I think it was a Tour de France, but it was like a cyclist going by, and he was up high, and it was like a kid walking down some steps, and a little bit of a blur of a cyclist of the road. And it's just like everything about it fits just right. Which is such a good lesson of, like we said, slowing down, taking your time. And
So maybe this one.
yeah. Oh, there wasn't a kid in this one, but yes, this is the one. Yes.
Yeah. So once again, really well composed, really great framing, the angle, all great, but it's the perfect shot of the cyclist in the right spot that makes the shot. If he wasn't there, if he was too forward, too far back, it wouldn't be as interesting.
Yeah, and I'm sure he sat in that staircase for who knows how long, but like found it, composed it, waited for something to happen that made it what it was.
Yeah. No, I love his work. If you get a chance to actually see some of his work in print, I would go and take an opportunity and go see it. I'm sure that there's a lot of maybe not galleries, but museums that'll have his work. But there are some galleries. I did see a print of the puddle jump in a gallery in New Orleans years ago, so they are around.
Yeah, anytime you can find a proper silver gelatin print of anything, is seeing it in person makes such a difference. And you forget how amazing it is to have like a proper darkroom print because you just don't see them as much anymore.
You really don't. And it adds a lot to it, especially in the black and white. I'm going to show one or two more. So this is when you think of the original title of the book, right? Photos on the Sly. This is great, right? This is an amazing photo. And you can tell nobody is looking at him, at the camera. And it's just so interesting versus what you would see probably people shooting at the same time period.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that everyone's just dressed so cool and like
Yeah.
suits and always great hats and all of those things that make it better than what you would get now. But it also is interesting to see like the people after him, like Martin Parr, who just passed away, and he was an influence on him, but he took it a different direction and like added some flash to it and color and do all these different things. But it was still kind of the same idea. And I just watched the documentary from Martin Parr, and it showed a little bit of how he worked, which was great to see. He would like get them, and now people smile at the camera all the time, and he would be like, no, 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 don't smile. Make
Yeah.
it more. It adds more to it. But yeah, he also was one of the co-founders of Magnum, and then shot for Life magazine for years. Which everyone, I mean, Life from the however long it lasted was where some of the best photos were taken always.
100%. And we'll probably do a separate episode on Magnum because if you are in photography and you don't know about Magnum, you should. It's a part of photo history and started by Robert Capa, and Bresson was one of the, I think, founding members. And there were a few other founding members. If you just look at a list of members of Magnum, it is the who's who of founders of photography, basically. And so little bit of there have been some controversies in what we can talk about that when we talk about Magnum as well. But it is really amazing work, and it's good to go back and look. Like you were talking about, even just in the old photographs, the outfits or the suits and everything people wore. It's a time capsule, right? And so I think that's what street photography. That's the one thing that's really interesting about street photography is that it is a time capsule of the place and the people and the time of that place. And so it's fascinating to look at this work.
And why I think this is important to look back on these things is all the time when you're coming up with ideas for photo shoots now, looking back at things that have been done, and no, don't copy it, but it's like you're using references and bringing your own life into it and your experiences and making it what something new and something different. It happens all the time of waves of photography change and go back and forth, but some of this stuff is just so classic, and it's just everyone wants to achieve that level of amazing black and white street photography. And you can always find inspiration in all of these old photographers.
Yeah. And so just to share the last one that I pulled here. So this is a great example, right? You could use this as reference for something today. It's a beautiful photograph. It's really well composed. And even though this was shot as sort of this on the sly, street photography, you could see replicating something similar to this even in studio with studio lighting, you know? And so you can always go back and find something that you think is really interesting and then pull it forward to use it as your own.
Yeah, like a modern version of this for fashion would work so well.
Exactly.
And it's like you can always do that. And that's why we have to study history and film, movies, cinema, all these different things. There's all these places you can find so much inspiration, and don't always just be looking at Instagram of what the current modern thing is that everyone needs to do.
Yeah, classic and timeless things, right? They're not going to always change. Yes, there's going to be new trends, but things are cyclical in terms of taste as well, right? So as things get super poppy, high contrast, ultra realistic, that is a trend that is currently happening. And now you're kind of starting to see people with some throwback things to the 80s and early 90s. But everything is trendy, right? And so at some point, for sure, things will kind of go in fashion, they'll go out of fashion. But classic things, especially when you look at classic compositions and lighting and you look at even like Brent Zahn's work, like the last image I showed, yeah, I mean it is an older photograph, but if something like that was shot for fashion today, it would still be relevant today.
Yeah, and I think capturing real moments is going to be a big trend this year of with AI and things like that. It's like anything you can do that is authentic and really happening is going to be more common and a lot more seen. So
Yeah, I mean that's the whole uncanny valley, right? That's the thing with AI. It is you see it a lot in AI. You'll see something and it's not quite realistic, and it gives you that uncanny valley feeling. So authenticity is something that people immediately have an emotion to or a reaction to. It's going to be that's kind of a new trend I can see coming up easily.
yeah. So yeah, this was great. We will dig into some more that have been inspirations in between some more interviews coming up. And also things like he shot with a Leica. We'll dig into Leica, why it matters, why it's important. Um, different who are we talking about next?
I
So
think
who?
we'll probably do Avedon.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of portraiture, and even though he shot outside a lot, I think when you think of studio lighting, fashion, Avedon was such a huge influence on a lot of that. So I think we'll probably talk about Avedon, and we'll talk about Leica, we'll talk about Magnum, we'll talk about a few of these things, and we'll kind of just be doing some of these shorter episodes, just and kind of pepper them in, because if people want to learn about some of these things, it's good for us too, right? It's like revisiting and going through things, or photographers maybe we haven't looked at their work in a while. It's always a good thing to go back and look at things that are influential.
Yep, it's good. All right.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Talk to you soon.